Welcome back to another episode of The Frustrated CEO. I'm delighted to say we are here again with Dr. Tom O'Connor. And we'll be spending this episode around his really cutting edge work on facilitating whole system change. For an in-depth bio, you can listen to the previous episode. Tom works extensively with organizations around change. And Tom, you gave us a little teaser in the last episode. I want to just acknowledge that our world is changing rapidly, and we're facing some really complex problems. Yeah. And I imagine every CEO out there, along with the four of us, are nodding our heads with that remark. And so often we're finding over and over again the ways we've tried to solve those problems in the past, a lot of times just isn't working anymore. So I know you do a lot of work with the distinction between when do you use technical leadership to solve a problem, and when do you find that you have problems that you just continually can't solve, that they just are perplexing. They create tension and they create conflict when you work on them, and you just can't get there with the traditional styles of leadership. And so you've been very effective at introducing this adaptive leadership style that has more of a sense of possibility. So with that, would you take it away? And I understand you've got a real life example you're going to help us work through.
Yeah. So this distinction between an adaptive challenge and a technical challenge. I said at the first episode, an adaptive challenge is to think about, can we create a prison system without the use of solitary confinement? We know that's, basically after a certain couple of days in solitary, it goes into torture, it goes into degrading people and making them more likely to commit violence, not less likely. So that's clear from the research, but we are built in a system that runs on solitary, our prisons in America. In Germany, they don't have solitary, and in Holland, they don't have solitary. So to change that system, we would have to change our mindset, not only our skill set, but our mindset. We'd have to change that. And leading adaptive change, building prisons, is a technical challenge. I said we built 6 prisons in 8 years. We put thousands more people in it. That was easy for us because we know how to do that. So whenever you know something that an expert can do, it's a technical challenge. We've already figured out how to do it. We know how to build skyscrapers. Done. We can do that, and we can put them up. The Chinese can put them up in a week. So the adaptive challenge, though, here's the king. Most organizations think that everything is a technical challenge. So they treat it like, they treat the adaptive challenges like they're technical. Now, only about 20% of a CEO's work is really adaptive. 80% is technical. The organization, they have their payroll system, that's working. You don't need to change it. Everybody's getting their check. Yeah, sure. Everybody's getting their deductions. Yeah, sure. That's fine. Keep it going. You're right. It's great. Most of the work is technical. But the adaptive is the dangerous part. And we don't want to go into that part because it takes different skills, right? So a leader, when they're trying to solve technical challenges, they need to come up. They're supposed to come up. Well, we know what to do here. Here's what we got to do. So you have to have the answers, or you get an expert who has the answers. For adaptive, you have to have the question, not the answer. So it's very hard to get the right question, because what exactly is the problem here? You have an adaptive challenge if you've got a recurring problem. We deal with this year in, year out, and it never goes away. This feels risky. This could end my career. And yes, if you're feeling that, you're right. You're in an area of adaptive challenge, because 40% of CEOs get fired, right? We all get fired at least once in our career. It is dangerous. So if it's risky, if it's dangerous, and if people want to avoid it rather than deal with it, these are signs when you've got an adaptive challenge. Now, are you also, though, a CEO who feels in their bones that something more is possible for your agency? You have a set of values, core values, and there's some tension inside of you. Now you're in the area of adaptive change, because you're becoming a CEO that's an adaptive leader. Have you made accomplishments in the past that are really adaptive changes? Many people have given up smoking, for example. That's a huge adaptive change. You have to change everything, your mindset. It's so addictive, but we can do these kinds of changes. So CEOs, have you got this desire for more? Take that seriously because you're in the area of adaptive change. So the first thing is the questions, not the answers. The second thing is conflict. When you've got conflict for a technical problem, the conflict gets in the way. Conflict is your friend when you've got an adaptive challenge. Why is it your friend? You've got to bring it out more. You've got to inquire into the discord that we talked about during the first session, because conflict will tell you where the nub of the problem is. If you can inquire into the conflict, but you have to do that safely. You have to make it safe enough to have the conflict. Now, the other thing that CEOs are good at doing is they clarify roles. Susan, you do this. Mary, you do this. Let's do this. Like, it's separating things out. For an adaptive thing, you have to let go of that clarification. You've got to sit in the unknown for a while and say, maybe we need to change our roles. There's maybe I need to change. So you have to sit long enough with the discomfort of not knowing to be able to stay in this adaptive arena. If you can help your agency stay there long enough, but you have to bring up the pressure. You see, CEOs are trying to solve pressure, make people happy, make it all okay. But for adaptive, you've actually got to bring up the pressure. You've got to make it a little hotter under the collar and challenge people to come into that zone of productive disequilibrium. Stay in the zone long enough for something to shift within us and among us, and then the adaptive solutions will emerge. New things, but they're new. We don't know what they are when we go into the process. So there's a whole way of working adaptively and staying in that area that you need help with often. And again, it comes back to this complexity too. Can we develop to be able to do that?
I have a right off the bat a question. It's all very interesting. You say you got to turn up the heat. You have to allow people to be uncomfortable in that. How do you know when, as a CEO, we're doing that, it's uncomfortable? How do I know it's a good uncomfortable and it's not a bad uncomfortable, like we're doing it wrong? And can you end up doing more damage than good?
The only way you can do more damage, there's a productive zone. Too little discomfort, no change. Too much discomfort, the lid blows off.
Right.
So really, yeah, it's this zone you got to get in, and that is you got to be listening. You got to. It's curved. Remember, I said it's risky. It is risky. It can and will be used against you if this goes wrong. So that's the skill pattern. That's why you need to be listening, and you need support. You need you've got to be very careful with this. Yeah.
Tom. So I'm thinking bigger companies, maybe public companies.
Yeah.
Right, where you have different audiences, right? You have different people to satisfy.
Yeah.
Right. You have a board. You have stockholders, shareholders. You have fiduciary responsibility. You have your leadership team. You may have global offices. All of these kinds of things. And maybe you're a leader and you know that something needs to change.
Yeah.
I think we've all seen some attempts there where there was too little heat, and some actually is identified as a fad.
Yeah.
Oh, our person read a book and they got lit up for a little while, and we'll be fine if we just ride it out until the next book. And then the other, we've seen someone maybe move with too much heat too fast, and the lid blows off.
Yeah.
Maybe they survive that, maybe they don't. But if you could go maybe a little further into the types of change, or the magnitude of change, it might be helpful to our listeners and to us to hear what you have to offer about that.
Yeah, well, let me step back a little, because I heard seeds of the train and pray method. I read this book. You see, I got trained. Yeah. So let me step back a little bit, just for your listeners. This concept of implementation science might be a good overall context, and then I'll go more specifically. We'll take an example of a big organization that did some work in this way. So every field, healthcare, corrections, criminal justice, education, business, has a body of knowledge from research that we know if we did certain things, people's health would improve, people's education would improve, people's would be more rehabilitated. There's a body of research. But when you look at the practice, that research is not in play. So there's a gap. There's a gap in every field, and every field began to see the same gap, the implementation gap. So people started studying the gap. What is going on here? Because 85%, think about this, 85% of change initiatives fail. And that's not because they don't have a great team of people and a great motivated group of people who are skilled. It's for other reasons. So they started looking at this. Well, what makes for a successful implementation? And there are principles that the literature has drawn out. So there's the 3-box model of implementation. Maybe I'll just frame that for you, and then we can jump in a little bit, right? So it's called the formula for success, or the 3-box model. There's 3 big areas you need to be in. So my backyard, there's a little grass area in the backyard, and creeping buttercups have crept into that grass area, and we don't have any grass anymore. We have a nice lawn of creeping buttercups, right? So get that image. That's what the creeping buttercups own the soil. If we wanted grass, we could get the best grass seed in Oregon and plant it in that ground and plant it in the right way. We're not going to get grass because the creeping buttercups own that ground. If we wanted grass, we'd have to what? Prepare the soil. We'd have to really work out, get the roots out, get that soil ready for the new seed, and then plant the seed in the right way. So you've got the preparing the soil. You've got the seed, which is the new practice, the evidence-based practice you want to implement. And then you've got the implementation. There's a set of things you need to do to implement correctly. 3 boxes, and they are multiplier. Anything is 0, you get 0. So you have to have all 3 boxes going. Now, the first box is enabling the context, preparing the soil. So I'll give you an example. The Virginia Department of Corrections, about 12 years ago, Harold Clark, African-American leader, became the director there. He had worked in several departments of corrections along the way. He got this concept of dialogue into his head. He practiced and practiced and got better and better at helping people have conversations. It's a different kind of a conversation than a discussion, than a monologue. It has certain different things. Harold then, when he gets to the department, he trains his leadership team, and this is the way I work a lot. I work with CEOs, and then their leadership team, and then the whole staff. So this is what happens there's 12,000 staff in the Department of Corrections in Virginia. Harold trains his leadership team in dialogue, and we can talk more about what that is. So he's enabling the context. We need to change the way we talk before we do anything. They train their teams, and they train their teams, and all 12,000 staff are trained in dialogue. But they don't do the train and pray. They get 260 coaches from their staff who want to learn more about dialogue and become coaches of dialogue, and they train them and they coach them. So now you've got the whole staff trained, and you've got a team of coaches who can help people do it. So they start practicing that. They have the lowest recidivism rate in the country for any state system. They're in the low 20% compared to 50% for some states. And all the indicators of staff satisfaction went up over time. And if you go to Virginia, I've been in a room with 200 people in a conference center. All they want to do is talk. You go in and they're all in little groups, and they're talking, and they're excited, and they have the voice because they know everybody's listening. because this is real dialogue. It's real conversation, and they're making meaning. When they have these little groups, but then they need to get the whole together. So they circle up 250 people in a circle, in concentric circles. So they're all together in one circle, so they get the same voice. So this is what's going on now. But Harold then, okay, that's enabling the soil. We're going to do our business through dialogue. That's how we're going to do our business. Now they've got evidence-based practices, change practices for working with people that we know will help lift people out of crime. That's motivational interviewing, that's assessment, that's programming, a certain kind of programming. So then you can move those practices into play. And then you've got to implement. You've got to have measures of fidelity. This is something we don't do. We don't measure. Are we actually implementing what we're doing? So you see, there's a whole lot of things going on in but Harold did all of those boxes. And that's what made the difference.
Wow.
So it sounds like from that description, it sounds like that's a linear process. Can those run in parallel?
It's not linear, Patrick, because that's the key, right? When you look at implementation, it's anything but linear. You're back and you're forward and you're in and you're out. There's no straight line. That is, again, that's the technical approach. Okay, we'll get the cement first, then we'll get the scaffolding, and then we'll get this. That's how you build a skyscraper. It's not how you do adaptive change, because you're constantly changing backwards and forwards. So you have to stay in that heat area, that discomfort, staying there. It's really not linear. Yeah. But I'm breaking it out into linear, the 3 boxes. You see what I mean?
That's why I asked.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not this comes first. Yeah. No.
Good.
Does the leader need to paint a picture?
The leader needs to embody it.
And embody it. Okay.
Embody it. And I literally mean embody. This is not intellectual. I'd love to show you how we work with that. I mean, this is totally, this is not an intellectual thing. This is not it is intellectual, but it's physical, it's embodied, and it's feelings, it's values that are going on. So it's a whole person approach.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of a large organization in Oregon that we worked with a while back. And this is partly why I asked the question about a picture or some way to stimulate things. And so it was ODOT. Okay. And the picture was that if we don't get better at the way we do what we do, it can be privately outsourced. And the leader brought in competitive data. But what was unique about it was he did it in an environment of intentional safety and said, we can do this. We can avoid what is an inevitable future if we just keep operating the way we've been operating. And they went to the legislature with this, and they got the largest budget they'd had in their entire history.
Wow, nice, nice.
So I'm basically asking, this is what you're talking about, right? This is.
See, what I like what he was doing. Our jobs are on the line. He's raising the heat. You know, he's challenging. Right? It's not. It's this balance of support and challenge. I've got to raise the heat. You know, and I'm going to hold you accountable to this level.
Right.
So,
and his leadership team was trained.
Yeah.
In dialogue, and then we were charged with creating a team of 50 internal coaches.
Oh, wonderful!
Some of them came off the road. I think I want to do this. So I'm mapping this too. I don't know where if that's where
well, what did you notice with it? Like, I mean, you see, like now you've got momentum. I want to do this. These coaches, they wanted to. Yeah. How did that go?
It went really well, but if you are talking about your lawn, there were a few that needed to be weeded out. took it to places of ego and
Yeah.
power and didn't hold the safety. And, you know, so there was some weeding, but we certainly had at least a little more than 40.
Well, the box one, to be honest, box one is the one that we you know, the tilling the soil, preparing the soil. We don't do enough of that, right? We really don't. We skip over it because we think, okay, this is what we need to do, but this is who we need to be. So there's a lot of skills around dialogue. You know,
Right.
Can you oppose? Can you move? Can you follow? Can you bystand? There are sets of skills that you really need, and that does require that requires confidence and growth and vulnerability. There's a whole lot that goes into that.
Right.
And
So,
I imagine the culture of the organization, I mean, almost goes without saying, but the culture of the organization and how they actually embody and live their values is critical to the success of an engagement like this as well.
It is, and our organizations are embedded in a culture. So the culture of the US, like, why does Germany not have solitary confinement? Why does America have solitary confinement? Right? Why, you know, what's going on, Gaza, Israel? I mean, there's all these, you really need to know the roots of things, and you need to be able to inquire into them. Yeah. That's, yeah.
So I want to go back to, you talked about a system change like this requires a shift in your mindset.
Yeah.
What are some components of that? If I was going to, like, okay, if I'm standing here and I'm very technical 80% of the time, and I'm going to step in this adaptive leadership role, what does that look like, feel like?
Well, maybe I can try and show you. How about that? And I won't sneak up on Patrick this time. I'll sneak up on myself. So remember I said, like, you know, befriend your frustration, know your growing edge, go into that, get a coach, right? So one of my, let me try and demonstrate, and people can listen and see what I'm doing and kind of follow along with me. The listeners, you just follow along with and what I'm doing. So one of my frustrations, I'll give you the intellectual component first. One of my frustrations is, you know, I like Jim Collins' Good to Great. He has 3 circles. An organization needs to be passionate about what they do. That's one circle. They need to be the best at what they're able to do. That's another circle. The third circle is they need to have a revenue stream that allows them to do what they're passionate and really good about. My growing edge is the circle around the revenue stream. We are passionate as a team. I know that, our team. We are really good. We are able to measure our outcomes. We measure our outcomes. We get above average outcomes compared to international standards. So we're clear about that. But we are struggling, growing. We're doing a good job, but not a great job with the revenue stream. Okay, so that's the area of growth for me. Now, do I stay with that intellectually, or do I do this? All right, so let me take a pause for a minute. Slow down. I don't know the answer here. And let me breathe for a second. So now I'm just breathing. I'm taking a notice. Oh, how is my breathing? I'm just noticing my breathing. See, I need to let my out breath go. So let my out breath go, and now I feel my body dropping. Now I'm getting more into my frustration. My legs are shaking a little bit. I've got kind of a little flutter in my tummy at the moment. Okay, so this is good. So, okay, what is right here for me now at the moment? Not intellectually, what's present? And then if I just stay with that for a second, I can feel a sense of being torn, right? And then I feel some emotion. I just feel this, oh my gosh, I just feel pulled apart. Right? There's something here is pulling me. And I have an image of my childhood, my backstory coming up. And then I have an image of, you know, I was a friar. I took a vow of poverty for 9 years. And here I'm trying to make money. There's a conflict. right? So now I know, okay, I'm in conflict about myself as a child. I'm in conflict here about my values. There's something going on that I need to pay attention to. So let me stay with that for a second. Now I'm feeling a little sad because there's just something, I have a desire, and I've been trying to break this block and I haven't made it through yet. You see, I haven't made it through. And now I'm feeling like my team, I need help from my team. I maybe need help from a coach. There's something here. Now I've had a couple of coaches in the area. They were not the right place for me. So there's something else I need. You see, now I'm in the unknowing. But I got there through my body. Now I could, we can't stay here for too long, but that now is I'm present. And I don't know where to go. I definitely don't. So I've got to stay here for long enough until something shifts, and something will shift. I'll get clues. I'll do some work. I'll get a bit of coaching. Now I'm working. You see, so and it's hard work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking the same thing. Thank you.
And it is hard work, or it seems like it's hard work. But just in the, minute or two you were doing that hard work, the opening it creates, as opposed to keeping you stuck trying to the same old problems, is like.
Yeah. I feel a release of energy now that I have some more energy to work on this. Oh boy, I'm going to work on this. So that's what it does. It releases. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think we've all worked with CEOs who, I mean, I was almost thinking there was a point where you said, okay, I'm just going to stay with this. And a couple of seconds went by and there was no sound. And I know CEOs sometimes struggle with no sound, right? It's like, I need to be doing. There's just too much to do. And the act of intentionally stopping the madness and going inward is uncomfortable. So you said it's hard work.
Yeah. But it's very rewarding though, Patrick, right? There's something about it that you just, you feel present, you feel connected.
I'm intrigued. You've mentioned dialogue a couple of times, and even in the first episode we did with you, I'm intrigued about that. When I hear the word, right, the word dialogue just means, hey, we're talking. We're just like, we're just communicating. Is it more than that? So what is it? And then for the CEO who wants to create more dialogue in the organization, how do I get better at that myself? And how do I raise that skill in my organization?
Yeah, there are. It's a great question. There are different kinds of conversations. So, and people in agencies, they're used to having a lot of monologues. One person speaks, another person speaks, another person speaks.
Sorry.
Right? Yes, exactly, Patsy. Right? We've all seen it and felt it. Now, a good monologue is, mono means one and logos means meaning. So one meaning, a good monologue is Martin Luther King. That's the purpose of a monologue. But at team meetings, it's really not very, unless you're really good at it. The root of the word discussion, a discussion actually means to break things apart, the root of that word. It's like percussion, concussion, it's the same root. So a lot of people have discussions or debates, but they're breaking things apart. And the problem about that can be helpful, is they're trying to find the right answer, and some voices win out over others. Mm-hmm. A dialogue means dia, which means through, and logos, which is meaning. So through meaning. There are three conditions for dialogue, and a dialogue is like what we're having. It's like a river flowing. A discussion is like a ping pong match, back and forth. This river, you feel being carried along. When you feel that, you're in a dialogue, and it has three conditions. One is equal voices. So this is from the Google work, right? They found after years of study that teams who are highly effective, if you measure the amount of time each person was talking at the end of a meeting, somehow magically, each person was talked for about the same amount of time. They just do that. So equal voices, psychological safety, the work of Amy Edmondson, that's kind of critical. And then suspending of assumptions. So this is a key dialogical practice, the ability to hold something up. Patsy's a good suspender. She catches things and says, summarizes and hold things up that just have happened. She kind of said, look, this is what we're doing. So if you can hold up your assumptions and catch them, it's really very powerful, because then you can test to see if they're real or not. So now, there's the conditions for dialogue. But then if you want to go into dialogue, you'll see 4 things going on in a meeting. Somebody will make a move. That means they're initiating, they're putting action out. This is the way we need to go. Okay, that's a move. Somebody will follow. A follow is they're great at picking up good ideas and completing them. Oh, I really like that idea. Let's go that direction. You see, and suddenly somebody follows. Now it's more likely the move is going to take place. Then you need an oppose. You need somebody to say, hang on for a second. I really like where you're going. I see what you're trying to do, but you're missing something. If you do that, you're going over the cliff. And here's what I would suggest to change it. So an oppose is risky. It puts tension into a meeting. But we need it. What do we do with people who oppose? Oh, you're not a team player. You see, oh, you're this, right? But we need to make it safe to oppose. And then finally is the bystand. Somebody you can watch. The quieter people in the room are usually good at noticing what's happening, and they're able to hold it up. Hey, this is our 4th time meeting. There are 6 of us in the room, and every time we meet, 3 of us do most of the talking and 3 of us end up being quiet. There's a bystand. You've just held up, and now people can see it. And what do the people who are quiet need to do now? They need to lean in. And the people who are doing all the talking need to lean out. Mm-hmm. So this is how you weave these practices of conversation, and you're able to measure it. Do we have equal voices? You can see it. You don't have to time it. If you don't have equal voices, you suspend it. And then people need to lean in, and the people need to lean out. That's the challenge. So it's moving these dials up and down till you get the right balance. Now you're going to be able to go into flow. You're going to be able to inquire into discord and move into new thinking. New meaning will emerge.
So I'm envisioning. Thank you. That's and even as you were talking, I think we're all envisioning. We can all picture meetings we've been in where you can attach names to the characters in your story. Is it recommended? Do you? Again, if I'm the CEO, should I go into my meeting intentionally trying to be one of the more quiet people to create that dialogue, or is that not necessary?
That's a great question. So, because your voice is as important as everybody else's. Some CEOs make the mistake, I should be quiet but people don't know what you're thinking. So people know you're the CEO. So your voice is more powerful than anybody else's voice. The question is it equal? What the CEO needs to do, and everybody needs to do, read the room. What's happening in our meeting at the moment? Do I need, for the good of the agency, to make a move at the moment? Do I need to oppose? Do I need to bystand? Do I need to follow? Am I able to do all 4 and read the room and know when it's right to do whatever it is that's needed? I saw Governor Kitzhaber at a meeting one time. I was out with 40 people here, and there were very strong movers in the meeting. The Chief Justice was there, and there was the big lawyers, and they were all, this is what we need to do, and they were moving. And Kitzhaber was just sitting. I was at the table with him. He was quiet for the first hour of the meeting. After an hour, he speaks up and he says, oh, I've learned something today. I never thought about it this way. That's the way I think we should go. So it was a powerful follow. Immediately, the room kind of went that way, and that's what we decided. 2 years later, that idea became law. So Kitzhaber was leading by following.
Mm.
But he timed it so beautifully. This is what was he didn't say anything for the first hour, and then he comes in with this amazing follow. So you see, so that's the skill. Yeah.
So you mentioned breathing, Tom. Do you suggest, as you work with leaders and CEOs, that that's a competency maybe that they need to add to their toolkit?
Yeah, we really do, and we make it okay for people to do that. We guide them into it. People love it. It's a 1 minute. Take a breath, drop into your body. It's amazing. That's enabling. That's preparing the soil. It doesn't take long. It takes a couple of minutes, but it changes the context.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great.
And I think that point's important, that just because we ask somebody to breathe doesn't mean that they know how to do that.
Yeah, no, it takes a bit of coaching.
Yes. And talk about embodiment, it's like, it's hard you can't breathe thinking about it. You have to actually be in your body to breathe.
Nice, Patsy.
No, I worked with somebody that ran sustainability or had a significant role in sustainability at a major Oregon company. And she started each of her meetings with a 1 minute of pause and breathing. And then her head decided that was a silly thing to do. So she stopped it, and everybody's like, what's going on? We're counting on this. We're depending on this. It makes our meetings better. And she's like, oh, wow. Okay.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
I have a question from reading some of your work. And we talk about that here, but in the work that we do to work with teams to create that psychological safety, we do a lot of times talk about intent. And so obviously I know we're kindred spirits on this from what I've seen your work. One of the bigger mistakes that we make in communication is we guess intent. We judge intent. Oh, I know what you mean by that. And in doing so, we start telling ourselves what you really mean instead of what you're actually saying. Why do we do that?
Yeah. It's called the writing reflex. There's a reflex in us that we kind of go there. I don't know what it is, but there's a reflex where we speed things up and we try and name things right away. I'm not sure why, Patrick, but it's endemic. It's pandemic. It's endemic. I don't know what it is, but
it's demic for sure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How do you coach leaders to not do that?
Yeah, but we do some skill development on that specifically, just to help people pause, and then we show them like a way that they can do it naturally. So when we do this exercise, people discover, oh my gosh, I was really able to listen deeply to that person, and that person felt heard. There was something different, so they experienced it. They oh my God, and everybody's able to do it, but our culture supports not doing it. So you help the culture, you show people, coach people, and people feel it. They experience it. Oh my gosh, that was so different. And yes, I was able to do it. Hey, I can do this. And that's where it begins to take. So that's what happened in the department. The concept of dialogue, it took hold. It changed people's lives. I mean, they're all talking about using it with our kids, using it with their church. So yeah. So once it catches hold, it's like a brush fire, right? The way the Native Americans just did the fires here, catches and makes things better.
It's good.
Well, shall we move into let's get practical?
Okay.
Yeah. I think if we get into the next round of questions, I think we'll be here for another hour. So it might be another episode. So thank you, Tom, for that very thoughtful and practical application of how to deeply start to connect. What are some let's get practical ideas that you would like to make sure that we capture?
Well, when I go back to these four, because they're so easy to remember: a move, initiate, a follow, an oppose, and a bystand. Ask yourself as a leader, what percentage of time do you do each of those?
Mm.
Do you spend 40% of your time moving, 5% following? Whatever it is, just write it down and see what you think. Then begin to notice. Watch yourself at the meeting and see what you're doing and notice what other people are doing. Once you put these four things on the table for a group, they automatically just start doing different things. So that is where I would go is again, watch, learn what you're doing and notice what's happening in the room and see if you can shift those patterns.
Good. Any others?
That's it for now. I'll look for you guys and then I'll come back.
You bet. Patsy, where are we going?
What you got?
Okay. Gosh, I have several, but I will not take them all. I'll leave you some. One I do like, Tom, I liked everything you said. You said you don't need to be quiet to foster dialogue on your team, but you do need to read the room and then respond accordingly. And that might look different from one meeting to another. But to dispel the notion that I have to go in and not say anything to create dialogue, that's not necessarily true. I liked you're talking about the optimal zone, too little discomfort and there's no change, too much discomfort and the lid can blow off. So you got to find that optimal zone. That's where you keep people uncomfortable enough and the real breakthroughs come. And it's risky, but listen to your people and again, adjust accordingly. Let's see. The last one I'll add is it just stood on its own. You said before you can accomplish what you need to do, you first need to determine who you need to be. I thought that was one of those mic drop moments. So that was cool.
Well, I'll add to that and then we'll let Lab pipe up. I love the distinction between technical leadership or challenge and an adaptive, and how they actually require very different skills and how easy it is to automatically fall into a technical area because it's something we already know how to do.
Yeah.
So let's just keep doing the same thing. And that to really allow yourself to be in this is what you said, a mindset that allows for adaptive thinking is that you need to know your growth edge. You need to be willing to be with whatever feeling or emotion you're having at the time, which is usually one of, frustration or sadness. And then you need to be willing to pause and just be with yourself and let that kind of, I started to say unfold, but it really is a matter of just sinking in and be willing to be vulnerable and ask for help. Mm-hmm. So what you got, Lab?
Well, we've covered a lot. I'd say one of the Let's Get Practicals is to make sure that you're evaluating all the voices, that every voice matters and is actually needed. Yeah. Another is everything isn't a technical problem.
That's good too.
And those skills may have gotten us to the top, but there is something else required. Allowing for conflict to be held as it's a friend.
Yeah.
And that it's safe. There's enough safety that the conflict can show itself. Yeah. And it is your friend, especially, talking now about CEOs who may get frustrated by the things they don't know as opposed to the things they know and they're working on.
Yeah.
The last one is that large change often requires a shift in mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're really powerful reflections, everybody, you know, and the other one I would add is breathe.
Yeah.
The power of your own body, your own breath, your own feelings, your own experience.
Yeah.
I had that down. I left it because I figured somebody else would grab it. So thank you for making sure you cover that.
So Patrick, would you take us out of here for today?
I would be happy to. Tom, in case somebody is just hearing you for the first time and didn't hear well, first of all, if that's the case, listener, go back and listen to our previous episode with Tom. Great insights there, more of his perspective as a CEO and a leader. But if someone hasn't heard that and they're interested in learning more about you or get in touch with you, Tom, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, email is tom@transformingcommunication.org. Website, Transforming Communication. There's a website, Transforming Corrections. Our phone number is 503-559-5752.
Beautiful. Patsy, great job.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Yes.
Pleasure.
Love you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. And listener, thank you for sticking with us to another episode of The Frustrated CEO. You can get this episode's Let's Get Practical from our website, thefrustratedceo.com, as well as all our previous Let's Get Practicals. And you can hear all the episodes there or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with all of us on LinkedIn. Connect with Tom, with Patsy, with Leb. Connect with me on LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you. Any ideas you have for future episodes, future topics, future guests? We want to engage with you as much as we are engaging with our guests like Tom. So anything else? And of course, Tom's cat.
Tom's cat.
Great guest appearance.
Cameo.
The world is better off for the work you guys are doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
You as well. Thank you, Tom.
Yes. All right. Thank you, listener. And we will see you again next time on the Frustrated CEO podcast.
Cheerio.